The council chamber hung suspended among the stars, a vast cathedral of glass and light. Every movement echoed across its crystalline walls, each sound amplified in the silence of judgment. Within its heart, 1,000 alien dignitaries watched a lone human representative, Captain Lyra Mendez, stand beneath the piercing glow of a dozen suns. Her reflection shimmered in the glass floor, fractured by beams of pale starlight. Above her, the alien counselors whispered to the universal translator, their voices a mix of silk and steel. Humans, one hissed, its tendrils coiling lazily in the air, are clumsy creatures, barely evolved beyond their gravity wells. How they survived this long is beyond comprehension. Another voice, colder, followed. They stumble through technology they do not understand, wage wars on themselves, and then arrive here seeking a seat among the stars. The audacity is almost entertaining. Lyra stood still, her posture perfect despite the weight of their mockery. She had practiced this composure countless times, yet it still felt like standing naked before gods. Her uniform bore the faint silver crest of Earth, a fragile symbol among empires that had existed for millennia. Beneath the table, her fingers curled into a fist so tight her nails cut into her palm. She didn't flinch. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "We are not here to beg," she said evenly, her voice carrying across the chamber. "We are here to contribute. Humanity offers resilience, adaptability, and the courage to—" A ripple of laughter cut her off. It wasn't a warm laughter of amusement, but the cold ring of superiority. One of the elder counselors, its eyes glowing like molten amber, leaned forward. Resilience? Adaptability? Words for the weak to justify their failings. Lyra's breath faltered. She had trained for diplomacy, not humiliation. Her role was to secure Earth's alliance status, to prove humanity could stand among the stars as equals. Yet every attempt at reason was met with derision. Behind her, the vast display showed a rotating hologram of Earth, a blue marble surrounded by data streams that labeled it developing, unstable, biologically limited. Each phrase felt like a knife. In that moment, Lyra realized that no argument, no diplomatic speech, would change the council's mind. They didn't want negotiation. They wanted entertainment. She was the act. A sudden chime echoed across the chamber. "The demonstration is ready," an attendant announced. "As per council decree, the human delegation will showcase practical skill to validate their claims of capability." Lyra's jaw tightened. She knew what this meant. A trial by performance. One final chance before Earth was dismissed from the intergalactic accord entirely. The terms had been designed to humiliate, not to test. A set of doors hissed open at the far end of the chamber. Through them walked a man in a weathered combat suit, the matte black armor marked with scuffs and old scars. His helmet rested under one arm. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were calm, almost unervingly so. "Sergeant Cole Barrett," Lyra announced softly, as if reminding herself that he was real. "Earth Defense Force." Barrett gave a single nod to the council, unbothered by the alien stares. "You wanted a demonstration," he said quietly. "You'll have one." The chamber darkened as a platform rose from the floor, revealing a transparent shooting range projected into space. Targets materialized, a series of floating orbs, each smaller than the last, drifting at impossible angles. The air shimmered as artificial gravity fields distorted the path between shooter and target. The counselors murmured among themselves, amused. "A human projectile weapon?" one scoffed. "How quaint. They still rely on metal and gunpowder." Lyra's pulse quickened. She wanted to stop it, to protest the unfair conditions. But Barrett had already stepped forward. He checked the rifle with practiced precision, each motion deliberate and fluid. The weapon was old, a relic by alien standards, but in his hands, it became something sacred. He inhaled deeply, his gaze narrowing to the scope. The noise of the chamber faded, the hum of the power conduits, the murmurs of alien laughter, even Lyra's breath, all disappeared beneath the rhythm of his heartbeat. A single shot cracked through the silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the first orb shattered into 1,000 points of light. The crowd went still. Another target flickered into existence, then another. Each moved faster, warped by shifting gravity. Barrett adjusted without hesitation. His fingers flowed across the weapon like a pianist at a forgotten symphony. Shot after shot, each one finding its mark. By the fifth hit, the laughter had vanished. By the 10th, even the council's leader leaned forward, eyes narrowing in disbelief. When the final target dissolved, the chamber was silent again. The scent of ozone lingered. Barrett lowered the rifle, exhaled, and looked toward Lyra. She could see the faint tremor in his hand, the quiet exhaustion beneath the stoic calm. He was no machine, no product of perfection. He was a man who had mastered imperfection. One of the counselors, clearly agitated, broke the silence. Coincidence. The human cannot replicate such accuracy. Barrett didn't respond. He simply reached for the rifle again, adjusted the power cell, and fired once more, this time without even looking through the scope. The shot ricocheted off 2 gravitic fields, curved midair, and struck a hidden target that had just emerged. The chamber erupted, not with laughter, but with chaos. Voices clashed in disbelief. Translators scrambled to process overlapping languages, and Lyra stood frozen, her pulse thunderous in her ears. Barrett turned toward the counselors. "You call us clumsy because we fall," he said quietly. "But every fall teaches us how to rise. That's something your perfection will never understand." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, from somewhere among the crowd, a voice whispered, "Perhaps there is strength in imperfection." Lyra's eyes met Barrett's. For the first time since entering this hall, she felt something shift. Not in the council, not in the galaxy, but within herself. The trial wasn't over. The path ahead was still treacherous. But as the chamber lights flickered back to life, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity had taken its first true step among the stars, and they would never crawl again. The silence that followed Barrett's display lingered like smoke after a storm. Even the hum of the chamber system seemed hesitant, as if the machines themselves were unsure how to proceed. Lyra stood motionless, her gaze fixed on the man who had just rewritten the way the galaxy saw humanity. Barrett had returned his rifle to its case, movement steady, composed, almost indifferent to the astonished murmurs echoing through the alien ranks. He didn't bask in triumph. He simply existed within the calm aftermath of action. Yet beneath his stillness, Lyra sensed a quiet weight. A man too accustomed to victory paid for in blood. The council was not so easily impressed. The elder presiding over the assembly, its translucent form rippling like liquid metal, rose from its throne. "A single test does not alter millennia of evidence," it intoned. "Perhaps humans excel only in chaos. We will see if discipline suits them." Its words were followed by a chorus of murmured agreement. The council's decision was swift. Another trial, harsher, final. A combat simulation would determine humanity's worth. This time, there would be no room for doubt or chance. Lyra's heart sank. "You can't be serious," she protested, voice sharp against the echoing chamber. "He's one man, not a spectacle for your amusement." The elder's voice turned glacial. "He represents your species, does he not? If your kind is as resilient as you claim, one will suffice." Barrett's calm voice cut through her anger. "Let it stand," he said quietly. His gaze never left the council. "If they need proof, I'll give it to them." When the meeting adjourned, Lyra caught up to him in the dim corridor beyond the chamber. The polished metal walls reflected their distorted figures, her rigid with frustration, his steady with resignation. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We've already proven enough. They're just looking for a reason to humiliate us." Barrett adjusted the strap of his rifle, eyes distant. "Maybe, but if I walk away now, they'll see that as fear. And fear is something humans can't afford out here." Her tone softened. "You think dying in their arena will change anything?" His lips curved faintly, not quite a smile. "I'm not planning to die." Lyra studied him for a long moment. His uniform bore the marks of long service, burns, patched seams, faded insignia. She wondered how many battles those eyes had seen, how many times he'd carried the burden of representing more than himself. In that quiet hallway, he seemed both soldier and ghost, bound by duty to a world that never stopped demanding proof of its worth. Hours later, The arena waited, a colossal dome suspended in orbit, its interior an ever-shifting maze of terrain and shadow. Gravity fluctuated in unpredictable waves, and fragments of metal debris drifted like silent predators through the air. Dozens of alien spectators filled the observation decks, their luminous forms crowding against the glass. Lyra watched from the control room as Barrett entered the field. His silhouette stood small against a vast expanse, a single human surrounded by machines older than his civilization. Across from him, the alien competitors, 6 in total, materialized in precise formation. Their armor shimmered with crystalline circuitry, their weapons humming with contained power. These were the galaxy's elite marksmen, bred for precision. Barrett lowered his visor. His breathing slowed. The simulation began. Instantly, the environment came alive with hostile energy. Plasma bolts sliced through the void, leaving trails of light that fractured into shards upon impact. Barrett ducked behind a floating slab of metal, the air crackling around him. He returned fire, his bullets adjusting trajectory mid-flight as he calculated against gravity's shifting pull. He didn't move like the aliens. There was no elegance, no mathematical symmetry. Instead, there was instinct, a rhythm carved by chaos. Lyra leaned closer to the console, heart pounding. Every movement on the screen revealed something deeper about him. The way he hesitated a fraction of a second before each shot, the way he used misdirection instead of raw power. The aliens fired in flawless unison, but Barrett's unpredictability disrupted their coordination. Where they sought perfection, he exploited error. Where they relied on pattern, he relied on intuition. A plasma beam grazed his arm, spinning him backward. Blood floated in crimson, orbs before evaporating in the heat. He gritted his teeth and pressed onward. Pain wasn't distraction, it was information. The second alien fell. Struck by a ricochet, Barrett had planned 3 moves ahead. His pulse quickened, focus sharpening into something primal. He wasn't just fighting opponents. He was rewriting physics with instinct and desperation. The council murmured above, torn between fascination and disbelief. Lyra heard their voices through the comm feed. Words like impossible and unpredictable, repeating like a mantra of reluctant awe. She wanted to believe that this was enough, that the sight of one man outmaneuvering an empire's finest would finally silence their scorn. But the fear beneath her hope whispered otherwise. Then came the tremor, the field's gravity spike. Barrett's footing vanished, and he spiraled upward, disoriented. One alien seized the opportunity, charging a plasma rifle. The blast hit him square in the chest, hurling him against a fragment of hull plating. His visor cracked, blood misted into the air. Lyra's breath caught. "End the simulation," she shouted. But Barrett stirred. He reached for his rifle, fingers trembling, breath ragged. "Not yet," he whispered. He anchored himself against a drifting beam, aimed through a fractured visor, and fired. The bullet curved along a gravitational bend, splitting into fragments that pierced the alien's armor. The target dissolved into pixels, leaving silence in its wake. He landed roughly as gravity normalized, collapsing to one knee. 3 opponents remained. Each moment felt longer than the last, the air thick with the scent of ozone and blood. But Barrett's focus never wavered. He moved with deliberate imperfection, letting them anticipate one motion while delivering another. A feint became a kill. A stumble became cover. When the final alien fell, the arena lights dimmed. Barrett stood barely upright, chest heaving, rifle lowered. The simulation ended. In the control room, Lyra pressed her hand to the glass. Relief flooded her chest, chased by awe. He had done it. A lone, wounded human. Barrett's voice came softly through the comms. "They called us clumsy," he murmured, "but maybe that's just another word for human." Lyra closed her eyes as the crowd erupted. Not in laughter, but in something dangerously close to respect. The aftermath was a silence too heavy to be peaceful. The simulation dome dimmed to black, its artificial gravity stabilizing as medtech drones descended toward the injured human. Lyra pushed through the observation deck security barrier before anyone could stop her. She reached Barrett as the drones worked to stabilize him, their lights flashing over torn armor and shallow breaths. His visor was cracked completely now, revealing one eye, calm, distant, unfocused, as if he were somewhere far beyond the noise of triumph. She knelt beside him, taking his hand. The smell of burnt metal and plasma still thick in the air. "You did it," she whispered. The words trembled as they left her. Barrett's voice was faint but steady. "Did we?" His gaze drifted upward, where the alien audience stared down through transparent walls. They were no longer jeering. They were quiet, contemplative, and for the first time uncertain. Lyra followed his gaze. The council stood among them, motionless, their forms shimmering in shades of light. They weren't accustomed to silence. It unsettled them. The elder, its molten gold eyes dimmed, spoke first. "You have exceeded expectation. Perhaps your kind possesses something we have forgotten." Lyra rose to face them, exhaustion sharpening into resolve. "You mistake imperfection for weakness," she said, "but it's what makes us relentless. We fail and we learn. We fall and we stand again. That's our design." The council conferred in hushed voices, their language a melodic distortion that even the translators struggled to capture. Moments stretched like centuries. Then the elder turned its luminous face toward her once more. "Earth will retain its seat within the accord," it declared. "Your resilience merits observation and caution." Lyra exhaled slowly, disbelief giving way to a fragile relief. Around the arena, alien delegates began to disperse, some in silence, others murmuring in tones that hinted at newfound respect or fear. The chamber that had once been a theater of mockery had become a cathedral of revelation. She looked back at Barrett. His pulse readings were stabilizing, though his skin was pale beneath the harsh lights. The medtechs insisted he be moved to recovery, but before they lifted him onto the stretcher, he caught her sleeve weakly. "Don't let them turn this into politics," he muttered. "It wasn't about winning. It was about being seen." His words struck deeper than she expected. She nodded, her throat too tight for reply. Hours later, the medical wing of the orbital station was still quiet. Barrett rested beneath a canopy of soft blue light, machines humming gently around him. Lyra sat nearby, reading the formal transmission from the council that confirmed humanity's new status. The words were clinical, devoid of warmth, approval disguised as curiosity, but it was enough. Humanity would not be cast out of the stars. For now, that was victory. When Barrett stirred, she closed the hologram and leaned forward. "They'll recover faster than we expect," he said hoarsely. "Empires always do." "You gave them something they can't forget," Lyra replied. "And you gave us something we can finally believe in." He smiled faintly, eyes half open. "Belief's a dangerous thing, Captain. Use it carefully." The door slid open as a group of alien envoys entered, observers, diplomats, maybe even admirers. One, with eyes like polished glass, stepped closer. "Sergeant Barrett." It said in careful standard, "We wish to understand your methods. You fought without pattern. Your shots improvised. It was not efficient." Barrett gave a weak laugh. "That's the point," he said. "Efficiency doesn't win wars. Adaptation does." The alien tilted its head, considering. "Perhaps your chaos holds wisdom." When they left, Lyra turned to him. "You just turned a sniper's rifle into philosophy." "Maybe it always was," he murmured. "A reminder that precision isn't about perfection. It's about purpose." The days that followed were a blur of debriefings, interviews, and cautious congratulations. Humanity's representatives across the galaxy felt the shift immediately. The ridicule that had once followed them was replaced by curiosity. Scientists, engineers, and strategists from other species requested collaboration. For the first time, humanity was not the youngest child at the table. They were the unpredictable ally. Barrett's recovery was slow, but steady. He avoided attention whenever possible, preferring solitude in the observation lounge overlooking the stars. Lyra found him there often, staring through a glass at the distant blue of Earth. "Do you think they'll remember?" she asked one evening. He didn't look away from the stars. "Not the council, but the people? Maybe. That's enough." She joined him at the window. Below them, ships drifted like fireflies, silent against the endless dark. "You change how they see us," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, I reminded them what they forgot. That strength isn't born from perfection. It's built from every broken piece we refuse to throw away. Lyra let his words linger. There was something sacred in the simplicity of them. The stars reflected faintly in his eyes, and for a brief moment, he didn't look like a soldier or a legend, just a man trying to make sense of the vastness. News feeds across systems began calling it the trial of the clumsy species. Some told it as a story of defiance, others as a warning. But on Earth, the meaning was different. It became a story whispered to children who dreamed of stars, a reminder that even fragile hands could reach the unreachable. When Barrett was finally cleared to return home, Lyra walked with him to the transport dock. The corridor hummed softly beneath their steps. "They'll expect you to speak at the assembly," she said. "Something inspiring." He gave her a wry look. "I'm not much of a speaker." "Then say something true," she replied. As he paused at the threshold of the boarding ramp, Barrett looked back toward the council chambers shimmering in the distance. "They called us clumsy," he said quietly. "And they were right. We stumble. We break things. But maybe that's how progress happens, one mistake at a time." Lyra smiled faintly. "And what happens now?" He glanced toward the stars, their light painting his scarred face in silver. "Now we make sure they never forget who we are." When the ship departed, Lyra watched until it was nothing but a glimmer swallowed by darkness. The council's verdict had given humanity a place among the stars, but Barrett's defiance had given them something far greater, a voice. Long after he was gone, she remained at the viewport, the reflection of Earth glowing softly behind her. The universe no longer looked so distant. It felt at last like home.